ای همه خوبی تو را پس تو کرایی کرا، ای گل در باغ ما پس تو کجایی کجا. سوسن با صد زبان از تو نشانم نداد، گفت رو از من مجو غیر دعا و ثنا. سرو اگر سر کشید در قد تو کی رسید، نرگس اگر چشم داشت هیچ ندیدو تو را. هر طرفی صف زده مردم و دیو و دده، لیک در این میکده پای ندارند پا. از کرمت من بناز می نگرم در بقا، کی به فریبت شها. دولت فانی مرا 20,000 آرزو بود مرا پیش از این، در هوس خود نماند هیچ امانی مرا. ای که به هنگام درد راحت جانی مرا، ای که به تلخی فقر گنج روانی مرا. سجده کنم من به جان روی نهم من به خاک، گویم از اینها همه عشق پنهانی مرا.
All right, so that was Bist Hezar Arezoo by Mohsen Chavoshi. And I guess, as usual, why don't you tell us a little bit about the song, the makeup of the song, and also a general overview of the lyrics and the language that's used in this.
Right.
In this song.
So, Bist Hezar Arezoo, first of all, means 20,000 wishes. And the whole song is about like wanting more time, wanting more like wishes, wanting to achieve something greater. And like one of there's this Bist Hezar Arezoo Bud Mara Pas Azin, which means like 20,000 wishes that has passed for me or that I had before. And he wants more time, he wants to do something. So it's not about love at all, this one. And it's not explicit at all. It's just like someone in their own thoughts, I guess you could say. And the language is super traditional. It's not like formal, like modern formal. It's like actually like old. And so it's not colloquial at all. So if like someone like me listens to it, you have to listen to it like a few times to actually understand what he's saying. I guess you could say it's like if Shakespeare was singing, like you need to figure out what he's saying. So it's just old in that sense. But the instruments that he uses are modern. So the lyrics is old, but the way he sings is modern, and the instruments are modern. So it's like a cool like play on with that.
And this older and traditional language, would you still consider it Farsi, like a distinct, like a denomination of Farsi, or is it considered a separate language in Iran?
No, it's still considered Farsi. None of our language, be it new or old, none of it is considered like a different branch of Farsi. It's all this one. It's just how the language has evolved.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you would just kind of call it like old Farsi, right?
Yeah, like even
yeah, just like how we say like Shakespeare in English, right?
it, which means like, oh, like it's old. You know, like even when you just talk with people, you refer to as old.
So is it more about the style of language, or is it of specific words that are no longer used today?
It's the phrasing of what he's saying, and it's like the words he uses, no one really uses. Like Mado Pasazin, like when he says like before me, like no one says that anymore. Like if you want to say that now, you'd say like Qablish. Like it's like different, you know. So even the words he uses and the way he phrases words is just very old. And like it's actually very difficult for people like me who are younger to actually pick up on it. Like I know a lot of my friends like they listen to it and they don't understand it because they're like, well, I don't get it. But like our parents would and our grandparents would because they like grew up with that language before us. But to us it's like, all right, like listen to it one more time and understand. A little bit difficult.
Is this like a common thing, like using like old Farsi in music?
It's a growing thing, I guess. Like, it wasn't that popular before, The songs that used to be popular were super like colloquial and simple, but then you have people like Dangsho and Mohsen Chavoshi, and they're like trying to bring that old element back in some way, in some way that like people would actually listen to it. Because like say Shajarian is amazing, but it's a little bit difficult to listen to classical music consistently, right? So
Yeah.
with what Mohsen Chavoshi's done, he's used super modern instruments and like rhythms, but the way he says it is traditional. So it's like it's good for everyone. It has a little bit of thing, so everyone can enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And is this something that like Chavoshi does often, like in his in the
Yeah,
music that he makes,
that's
like?
what he's famous for. So
Mm,
even like in his album covers, for example, and this album cover for Bist Hezar Arezoo is like all cloudy, but the writing is he uses like calligraphy, but there's different types of calligraphy, and he uses like the old calligraphy to write it. Yeah,
That's
but
really interesting. Like this is just kind of like pseudo deep nonsense, but like this kind of like simultaneous like decline of culture appreciation, while at the same time having like this rise of artists like Mohsen Chaboshi, or the fact that Shajarian is still very popular, or poetry in Dang Show. Uh, like just now I'm just being fake deep right now. Like, oh, it's going down, and also it's going up. Like, nah, just want to toss that in. But no, that's really cool. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, so I just have another question about the kind of old Farsi is what I'll call it. Is there an official name?
no, we just go
Okay.
see, yeah.
Um, is this the language that like I don't know famous authors or famous well-known texts would be written in? Like if you read, you pick up I don't know a well-known book, maybe a book of poetry or a novel. Would this be something that would this language be the language that the text is written in?
100%, yeah, because this language, it's like not exactly, but like a show of knowledge, because it's really hard. So if you like pick up a well-known novel or a text that's been published, it will typically be in this like old formal kind of language. Just because it seems as more academic. Because if it's colloquial and everyone understands it, it kind of takes away from it being like special, I guess. So if it's written this way, it seems a lot more knowledgeable and academic, and a lot of people respect it more. So for sure, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, is this also like the same type of language that you can find in like all the poetry that we were talking about earlier?
Yes, yeah. The poetry is like a step further back. Like it is a little bit harder, but it's definitely like in that realm.
So just on the topic of literature, I was wondering if you could, I don't know, list a couple of famous or well-known Persian authors or texts that are particularly well known.
I'm probably the last person you should ask that. But there's like these series of books that are really every household has it. They're not necessarily like these prestigious books that everyone has, but it's called Dastan Rastan, which you pass it down to your children to read. And they're super easy to read, but they have like a certain place in like our culture that every single person has it, which is a bit strange. But you read it to your kids when they go to bed, and even when they grow up, you still read it. Like I have my own series of it. You just hand it down from generation to generation. So I guess that could be one, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were asking.
No, that's perfect.
But yeah, that's kind of
That's really interesting. How many generations back does your set of books go?
probably like 3. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's not that long,
So is this
you know.
right? Huh, interesting. Handing down a series of books, and this is like something that's like kind of widespread in Iran. Like,
Yeah, it's a thing, and it's always like children's books that everyone knows, and everyone's like, oh, like my mom gave me this. Then the mother would be like, yeah, like my grandparents gave me this. You know, like it's a thing. And a lot of the books and stories are actually from super old folklore. Like the most famous one is uh, the story of Rostam, which
hmm.
everyone knows. It's like this mythical thing that everyone just knows it. It's about this do you want to know what it's about? It's kind of long.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. It's about this emperor who's like super who gets like a divinity thing who's like this kid's gonna come and overthrow you. And the dad finds out it's his son who's just born. And so the dad goes and works for this emperor for a super long time and never sees his kid growing up. And this kid grows up and he wants to find his dad, but he knows he's like this insanely crafted swordsman. That's all he knows about him. He doesn't know that he works for the emperor. He goes on to this like quest to find his dad, and it leads him down to the emperor's door. And the dad actually guards the door, and they get into like this really complicated sword fight. And the dad, not knowing he's fighting his own son, and he actually ends up killing him. But before he dies, he says like his dad's name is Rostam, so he says like I swear by like all the birds in the sky and all the fish in the sea that my dad Rostam will avenge me, and that's when he
Oh my God!
yeah,
What?
and that's
my
when he
goodness.
And this is a story that you read to children?
yeah
It reminds me a little bit of Oedipus,
yeah
like the story of Oedipus, but maybe with a nicer ending, a happier, more lighthearted tone.
yeah. So
Interesting. Sounds kind of brutal to like
kind of
be
hard.
reading this to your children. Okay, guys, you ready for your bedtime story? Here's a story about a father who kills his own son.
Well, I just gave a
Sounds like a threat.
abridged version of it. The story itself is quite beautiful, like the quest he goes on to, the people he sees, the
Right.
interactions. I just like completely abridged the whole thing. But in that sense, it actually is a really beautiful story. It's just the ending is very Shakespearean and tragic.
Mm.